Hello and welcome to this practice session, Inverse Proportion Multiplicative Scaling with me, Miss Mandleberg. Now before you continue, please make sure you've watched the learning video relating to this topic. That will really help you to be able to answer these questions. Also make sure you have a pen and paper ready to write down the questions. Okay, so now for a couple of examples before you have a go at some questions on your own. So I'm going to go through two examples and I'm going to go through them in silence first of all because I just want you to watch what I'm doing. So don't write anything down at this point, just watch what I'm doing. Here's example one then. Okay, so let me just talk through what I did here. So I've got a question here. I'm told one person can build a fence in 4 hours, and then I'm asked how long it would take for 2 people, 6 people, and then 20 people. So I thought it'd be helpful to set up a table to start with the information that I've been given. So I know it takes one person 4 hours, so that's my start point. So let's look at 2 people then. So to go from 1 to 2, I need to multiply by 2, which means that the number of hours is going to halve. So I need to divide 4 by 2. And that's because the more people I have, the less time it takes to build the fence. Now I am making an assumption here. I am assuming that every person works at the same rate. So you're absolutely fine to make that assumption. Okay, so looking at 6 people then. So 1 to 6, I multiply by 6. Therefore, I need to divide 4 by 6 to get the number of hours it takes 6 people. Now that gives me 4 divided by 6, which is a fraction, but don't be put off. Remember, fractions are just divisions, okay? They're divisions with integers. So 4/6, you can simplify that to 2/3 of an hour if you like. Finally, looking at 20 people then. So I multiply 1 by 20 to get 20. Therefore, I need to divide 4 by 20 to get the number of hours it would take 20 people. So 4 over 20 is the same as 4 divided by 20, and I can simplify that to a fifth. Now, some of you might have noticed that you can go from 2 to 6 by multiplying by 3 rather than going back to the top. Now that's absolutely fine, okay? There is usually more than one way to do this, and the maths there might be a little bit straightforward, a little bit more straightforward. You may also have spotted that I could have gone from 2 to 20 by multiplying by 10. Absolutely fine. It always works going back to 1, but you're not always given the number of people as 1. Okay, sometimes you're given a different value to start with, as we'll see in example 2. Okay, let's just talk through this one then. So I'm now being told that 3 people can build a fence in 4 hours. And again, how long would it take 6 people, 12 people, or 2 people. So looking at the first value that I've got 3 people taking 4 hours. Part A asks for 6 people, so I have to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6 people. Therefore, I have to divide 4 hours by 2 to get 2 hours. So that's how long it takes 6 people. Looking at 12 people then, I'm going back to 3 here. So I've done 3 times 4 gives me 12. Therefore, I need to divide 4 by 4, which gives me 1. Now I could have gone from 6 to 12 and multiplied by 2 and then divided 2 by 2. That's fine, okay? It's up to you. Now finally, to go to 2, so I've gone from 6 to 2 and I have multiplied 6 by 2 over 6, and that simplifies to a third. Therefore, to get from the number of hours for 6 people to the number of hours for 2 people, I've divided that by a third, and that gives me 6. So 2 divided by a third is equivalent to 2 times 3. So if you think about KCF, when you divide fractions, and you want to make it easier, you can change the sign and flip the second fraction. So 2 divided by a third is the same as 2 times 3 over 1, which gives you 6. Some of you also might have thought that an easier way to get from 6 to 2 would be to divide by 3. Now the reason I have not done that is because I want to keep all my multiplication on the left hand side and all my division on the right hand side, so I'm always going in the same direction. However, that would work, but I'd need to make sure that I multiplied 2 by 3 for the number of hours, which would also give me 6. Okay, it's your turn now. So I'm going to put 2 questions up for you to have a go at. Now you may spot a link between the first example and the first your turn, which will make this a bit quicker. So look out for that. However, if you don't spot anything that you think is going to help you, just follow this method here. So press pause now and have a go at those 2, using exactly the same technique I've just talked through. Okay, so let's look at the first your turn then. So I gave you the table here to start you off, and then here is the answer. So I answered it in exactly the same way as I did with the example directly opposite it. So I have got 2 hours, 1 hour, a third of an hour and a tenth of an hour respectively for 2, 6 and 20 people. Now, some of you might have spotted that in the first example, it takes 1 person 4 hours, and in the your turn, it takes 1 person 2 hours. So that person is twice as quick as the person in the first example. So that actually means that all your answers are actually just going to be half the answers you got in the example. So if you did spot that, well done. On to the second example then, second your turn. So again, I used exactly the same technique here, and I got 2 hours, 10 hours and 5 over 3 hours here for 10, 2 and 12 people respectively. Now again, please don't worry about the fractions, they are just divisions. So make sure you have those examples written down as well as the your turn questions before you move on. Okay, so I've now got 6 questions for you to try. So they start off fairly easily, and then 4, 5 and 6 do get a little bit more difficult. Now be on the lookout for the numbers in the questions, particularly questions 1 and 2 and questions 3 and 4, because there may be a way to answer those questions more efficiently. What I mean is you could use question 1 to help you with question 2 and question 3 to help you with question 4. So what I'd like you to do now is press pause and have a go at these questions. Let's go through question 1 then. So one person can build a wall in 6 hours. How long will it take 2, 4 and 6 people? Okay, so drawing my table then with the information that I've been given. So first of all, let's look at how I've got from 1 to 2 people. Well, I have doubled that, so I've multiplied by 2. So in terms of the hours it's going to take, I need to divide 6 hours by 2 to get 3 hours. Looking at 4 people then. Now I'm actually going to go from 2 to 4 people because I only have to multiply by 2 again. And actually I'm going to run out of room otherwise. So 2 times 2 is 4. And therefore I have to divide 3 hours by 2, which gives me 3 over 2 or 1.5 hours. Again, don't be put off by the fractions. It's just a division. Then finally, I am going to 6 people. And I'm going to go back to 2 people here, okay, because 2 is a factor of 6. So I just have to multiply it by 3. Therefore, I just have to divide 3 hours by 3, which gives me 1 hour here. On to question 2 then. So I have 3 people who can build a wall in 6 hours here. Again, I'm going to set up my table and I'm going to go through these in order. So I've got 3 people taking 6 hours. So for 2 people, I need to think about how I get from 3 to 2. Now I have to multiply by 2/3 there. So in order to get how long it takes 2 people, I need to divide by 2/3 there. So 6 divided by 2/3 gives me 9. Now that makes sense because I've gone from 3 to 2 people, so I would expect it to take longer. Okay, looking at 4 people then. I'm going to use what I've got for 2 people here because all I have to do to get from 2 to 4 is multiply by 2. Therefore, 9 divided by 2 gives me 9 over 2 hours or 4.5 hours. Again, don't be put off by the fraction, it is just a division. Finally, I'm looking at 6 people. So I'm actually going to go back to 3 people here because 3 is a factor of 6. I can just multiply it by 2 to get 6. Therefore, I just have to divide 6 by 2 to get 3. Now, some of you might have spotted the similarity in the questions. So question 1, I was told that 1 person can build a wall in 6 hours. Question 2, I was told that 3 people can build a wall in 6 hours. Now that means that these people are 1/3 as slow in question 2 as they were in question 1. So that means I could have multiplied my answers in question 1 by 3 to get my answers in question 2. That is quite tricky to spot, so if you did spot that, very well done. No worries if you didn't, you are still practicing a very important technique. On to question 3 then. So I have 3 machines producing 200 footballs in 2 hours. Set up my table with the information that I've got, and then I'm going from 3 machines to 1 machine to start with. So that means I have to multiply 3 by 1/3. Now that is the same as dividing by 3, but remember I want to keep my multiplication on the left hand side. So I'm always doing the same thing on the left hand side with the number of machines. That means I have to divide 2 by 1/3 to give me 6. Now remember that is equivalent to multiplying 2 by 3, thinking about our keep, change, flip method. So 2 multiplied by 3 over 1 gives me 6. So looking at 4 machines then, it's easiest to go straight from 1 to 4 because I just have to multiply by 4. Therefore, I divide 6 hours by 4 to get 6 over 4 or 3 over 2, which is 1.5 hours. Again, please don't be put off by the fractions, they are just divisions. And then finally, for 5 machines, I'm going to go back to 1 here because it's a much easier calculation to do. All I have to do is multiply 1 by 5 to get 5. Therefore, I divide 6 by 5 to get 6 over 5 or 1.5 hours. On to question 4 then. So again, setting up my table, and I'm applying exactly the same technique here. So I end up with 3 hours, 3/4 of an hour and 3/5 of an hour. Now, some of you might have spotted that question 3 had 3 machines producing 200 footballs in 2 hours, and then I was asked for 1, 4 and 5 machines. And question 4 has the same piece of information to start with, but I'm being asked for how long it takes 2, 8 and 10 machines here. Now, you might have spotted that 2, 8 and 10 are double the numbers of machines in question 3. So that means you could halve the amount of time taken compared to question 3. And we can see that here. So for 2 machines, it takes 3 hours compared to 6 hours for 1 machine. For 8 machines, it takes 3/4 of an hour compared to 1.5 hours for 4 machines. And for 10 machines, it takes 3/5 of an hour compared to 6/5 of an hour for 5 machines. So very well done if you spotted that. Okay, so on to question 5 then. Now it's a little bit different in that some algebra has crept in here, but don't let that put you off. If you use the same technique that you've been practicing so far, you can have a really good go at this question. So I'm told that it takes 2x hours for 2 people to put 600 letters into envelopes, and I'm asked how long it will take for 4, 6 and 10 people. First thing I'm going to do, set up my table with the information that I've been given, and then I'm going to use that information to work out the rest. So thinking about 4 people then, I can see here that I can use 2 people because 2 is a factor of 4, so I multiply it by 2. Therefore, I divide 2x by 2, which gives me x hours for 4 people. Looking at 6 then, I'm going to go back to 2 people here because 2 is also a factor of 6. I just have to multiply it by 3. Therefore, I have to divide 2x by 3 to get 2x over 3 hours. Again, don't be put off by the fractions. A fraction is just a division. Then finally, to go from 2 to 10, I have to multiply by 5, and I've used 2 because it is a factor of 10. Therefore, I have to divide 2x by 5 to get the hours for 10 people, so that's 2x over 5. Finally, on to question 6. So algebra's still here, but I've got x over 5 hours. Again, just treat it the same way as any other question. So I'm going to set up my table, and I'm asked for the same information again, 4, 6 and 10. And I've answered this in exactly the same way as I have question 5. So here is the solution. Now that brings us to the end of this session. Well done if you got to the end of all of those questions, and it might be that you decide you need to do a little bit of work on fractions, which is always going to be useful. A teacher once told me that fractions are your friend, and I couldn't agree more. Anyway, on that note, thanks very much and see you next time.